Many games are revered as classics, never-aging jewels that still glisten after 10, 15, 20 plus years. Other loved games are nothing more than just a shadow of what they once were. This is Rioshoa, and welcome to Aging Gaming. Fairly recently, one of my personal friends actually recommended me doing an episode dedicated to Donkey Kong Country, specifically seeing whether the game has aged or not. And originally I declined, mostly because I just wasn't in the mood to play it, but also partly because I have a Let's Play of it on my channel, and it's like, if you really want to check that out, go ahead, submit yourself to it if you really feel like it. If you don't want to, I'm going to give a bit of a rundown now, because I've changed my mind. I figured, yeah, it's a good game that maybe I should do just a retro review on it, or an aging gaming segment if you want to call it that, you know. So, I suppose I'm gonna dive into this game a little bit before I start the actual review. Donkey Kong Country is the first smash hit to come from the famous company Rareware. Yes, I know they also made the popular Battletoads, but Donkey Kong was the first real head-turner for Rare. Donkey Kong Country was also one of the first games to use pre-rendered graphics. Admittedly, when I was 7 I didn't really understand what that meant, so as far as I was concerned, Donkey Kong was 3D! I could see them stand out, they weren't just flat. This is so cool! To many beyond just myself, this was pretty mind-blowing. The game was such a hit that Rare then produced 2 more Donkey Kong Country games before the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle, and they also became instant classics. Instant classics. You smell that? I smell 2 more episodes that I can tackle down the road. I'll stop sniffing now. Rare went on to produce many other great games that made them, for the longest time, the pinnacle of game developers, held in the stern grips of Nintendo. Until Microsoft decided that they wanted Rare more. This is also where Diddy Kong, DK's lovable sidekick, was born. And since then, Diddy himself has been the star in a couple of games. Rare made a legacy with this game, and shaped the way DK would be viewed even now, without their development on the franchise. Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze are the spiritual successors of the original Super Nintendo trilogy, and although at the time of this recording I haven't played Tropical Freeze on account of it not being out yet, I have played Returns, and it is one of my favorite games of all time. So with Donkey Kong paving the way, creating great game after great game, has the original been left in the shadows to be nothing more than an aged-old cranky relic, rocking in its wheelchair, shaking its cane? Or is the nearly 20-year-old game just as spry as ever? That is what I, Rio, the aging gamer, is to... Wait, that didn't come out? The first thing to note in this game is that you have 2 characters, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. Each Kong plays a little differently from each other. Donkey Kong, our star, is a big lunky gorilla, and because of this, he feels a little clunky, and in turn, he hits enemies that Diddy can't. Also, while carrying around barrels, the only item you can literally pick up in the game, he holds them overhead, whereas Diddy can only just get them off the ground. This makes throwing the barrels different based on which Kong you are using. Donkey Kong can also slap the ground, which he can occasionally find random things, like bananas. Woohoo? Chances are anyone playing the game will begin to prefer one Kong over the other because of this. There is also the supporting cast in the game, such as Cranky Kong, who nags you and belittles you for a while before finally giving you useless tips about the game.
You know, I was a much better Kong in my heyday. You listen to me, boy? Some grandson you turned out to be. I have multiple huts around the island that I'm always at somehow, and you never even bother to visit. Do I have to smack you with my cane again? Donkey, my boy, you should learn to be better to your grandfather. My wife hasn't even been invented yet, so I'm just a lonely old ape rocking on my porch of a shack. I should get a shotgun to make this look even more cliched. Oh well. If you see a barrel with stars on it, break it open. It's a midpoint marker.
Thanks for that. Next! You also have Funky Kong, who can take you to other areas of the island, but honestly, I don't use him that much, but I always pay him a visit anyways, because his music is awesome! Then, lastly, you have Candy Kong, DK's girlfriend. She saves your game, as well as blows you kisses. Ew! Lastly, you have an array of animal pals to ride through the stages, just to change up the mix. Say, for example, Rampy the Rhino, or Winky the Frog. You know, I'm really glad they didn't use a snake for that name. That would have been kind of... yeah. Anyways, they're fun to use for the most part, although if you're playing the original SNES version of the game, Squawks the Parrot is an asshat, and he will blind you. As for the plot, well, a bunch of gators are made off of DK's giant hoard of bananas, and you must jump, roll, and hurl barrels around DK Isle to get them back. Yep, that's a good enough platformer plot. Honestly, the game does give a very good sense of a foreboding danger, as the final stage in the game, Gangplank Galleon, actually sails closer and closer as you progress through each major area of the game until you reach the Kremlin leader, King K. Rool, aboard his ship. It's really just a small detail, but it's the small details that separate good games from great games. Visually speaking, the pre-rendered sprites look alright. Obviously not up to par to today's standards, but Rare really knew how to make everything feel just right. While jumping through the jungle, it feels like a jungle. The caves feel like caves, the forests feel like forests. There's plenty of other settings as well, and they also give off proper vibes. Part of this is thanks to the music score. Donkey Kong Country's soundtrack really helps set the mood. Very few games nail the soundtracks from start to finish like this game. Just listen to one of the plenty atmospheric tracks in action. What helps this game feel even more right is the animations for the characters. First off, they don't have the same 2D feel that the other sprites would have, making them feel a little more real, and DK and Diddy move like primates would. As for the Kremlings, they really feel like villainous gators, with an almost slithering-like movement that make them seem sinister and feral. What's funny about the movements, however, is that DK and Diddy can defy gravity. Like, literally defy gravity. If you do a roll off a ledge, you'll begin to descend in an arcing direction, but you can at any point press the jump button while in the roll and perform a jump despite the lack of ground, and one-up Jesus and his walking on water feat in the process. I do not make a Jesus joke to belittle others' beliefs in our religion. This was just for a humorous joke that will be forgotten quickly. Everyone has the right to their own beliefs. Now, what strikes me funny about this is that one would assume it's just an exploitable glitch that Rare overlooked. But no, this is not the case. In fact, it's impossible. There are actually a few secrets or items in the game that are only obtainable by using this rolling jump. Look no farther than the treetops of the first level. You can earn extra lives just by jumping off the air and jumping from tree to tree. Although it seems strange, it does make the game more fun, as you really feel awesome when you actually manage to master these jumps. Speaking of secrets, man, there are so many. Nearly every stage has a few to share, although secrets are a bit of a double-edged blade in this game. Finding a secret area increases your completion of the game, however, you don't actually have to beat the minigames found in the secret areas. This can be a little dissatisfying, but I guess Rare was trying to make the secrets more about the journey to finding them than the actual destination. You know you found all the secrets in a level by indication of an exclamation mark at the end of the stage's name. Generally speaking, I enjoyed most of the stages, as they are very simple while still becoming increasingly challenging. Stage repeats are rare, I made a joke, and often spaced far enough apart that when you get a repeating stage, it's often much more challenging. That being said, there are stages I didn't enjoy in the least. The water stages are just ripe with atmosphere, just as any other stage, but feel very slow-paced and similar no matter how much more challenging they do get. Caves do seem a little too dominant, and what is likely the biggest offender are the bosses. They are simple, like really, really simple, with little challenge offered. On top of that, most of them are also recycled, which seems kind of sad because there's only like, what, 7 bosses in the game? The only exception to this is the amazing final boss stage, but every world just seems like it finishes with a low note. Still, with that being said, the game as a whole is pretty fun, hosting a wide array of enemies, an affinity to barrels, quick-paced action and platforming, and even multiplayer options to play with a friend. The final boss is really great, and the credit roll is even pretty cool, but I think for the few that hasn't played this game yet, I'll just leave it as a surprise. And this game is definitely worth the asking price it has on the Virtual Console. Is it as good as, say, Donkey Kong Country Returns? I'd say no, but it's still a great experience that I'd recommend anybody try. You're doing yourself a crime if you don't at least play the game. It's a game with a few gray hairs, but Donkey Kong Country is still a great game all the same.
Eh? What? What are you still doing here, you ungrateful ape? Standing around on my porch. Now you decide to visit, with the video being over? Bah, the youth of these days. When I was your age, we didn't even have an internet. But since we do now, all you youngins have everything you ever needed at your fingertips. We used to have to find all the secrets just by trial and error. Ah, those were the days. Eh? What? Huh? You still sitting there? Well, do something useful and click subscribe instead of just monkeying around on my doorstep.